Hi guys, and welcome to another session of Honest Talk About Women, where you'll learn tips, tricks and strategies on how to navigate the minefields of dating and relationships. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also comment in the comment section. It all helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you've got a story you want to share with viewers, you can contact me on my email address listed below. So let's get right into it. I've got a viewer story. Why is it so expensive to live in Auckland? So Auckland is in New Zealand. That's my home country. And my home city. So here's the viewer's story. I find Auckland a really expensive place to live. Me, 38 male, and my partner, 32 female, have been living together for 6 years and live in Auckland and have found the prices to live here really expensive. We rent a house and buy our groceries, and after paying the rent, food and utilities, we have pretty much nothing left over. Why are things so expensive in Auckland? And is it just Auckland, or is it all over the world? Having no money left over after paying all the bills. It has an impact on our relationship as we both feel we're stuck and unable to get ahead. Okay, that's not uncommon, guys. That viewer question relates to a lot of people all over the world, and mostly first world cities. So you may ask yourself, what's this got to do with relationships? Well, it's got everything to do with relationships in terms of upward mobility, career progression, marriage, having kids, retirement, and so on. If you can't earn money above your living costs, then you won't be able to do the niceties of a relationship, like overseas trips, ski holidays, etc., or get married. The average cost of a marriage these days is about $30,000, or have kids. The average cost to bring up a kid for the first 18 years is $250,000. And that's not my figures, that's from the tax department. So, or you won't be able to retire comfortably. So this is a common problem right across. So let's get into it. Let's start with Auckland. Is it really that expensive? Well, there's plenty of surveys out there that show the countries around the world that are the most expensive to live in, and there's plenty of indexes and plenty of studies that come out, and they all say the same sort of cities basically. And the most expensive in the world is Singapore, Hong Kong, London, then Shanghai, and then you got a couple of European cities, Monaco and Zurich, and then you got New York, Paris, Sao Paulo, and Milan. So very interesting. The top four cities, 3 of them are Asian. 30, 40, 50 years ago, they weren't that wealthy. It's incredible the amount of wealth they've created, but it's also become extremely expensive to live in those cities. So with Auckland and New Zealand, it hovers between 10 and 15. So it's up there. It's not in the top 10, but it is expensive. So to my viewer, you're not alone. There are other cities more expensive than Auckland to get ahead. I've lived in London, and it's incredibly expensive. I remember buying I was making dinner for my girlfriend in that city one night, and I went out and got some produce, and I remember paying $5 for a potato, a big potato, not that big, this big, but just to make a mashed potato, and $5 for a potato. That's hugely expensive. Anyway, let's get back into it and ask ourselves, how did we get into this? So I firmly believe there's a lot of economists out there that say different things, and if you get 10 economists in a room, you'll get 10 different answers. But my personal assumption is that there's a COVID asset bubble. So we went into COVID. Things leading up to COVID were pretty good. Things were low interest rates. People had purchasing power with their salary, wages, but it all got lopsided with COVID. So we went into this new era that we didn't know what was going to happen. Some countries closed down, like New Zealand. It had one of the most restrictive COVID policies in the world. It closed down. And there's a real fear the economy was going to crash. Well, if you close the country down, it most likely will crash. So the government put in a huge amount of quantitative easing. And for those that aren't familiar with quantitative easing, it's just basically the government printing money to keep things moving. And so they increased the supply of money, providing liquidity to the banking system and lower interest rates even further. But when you lower interest rates artificially low, it creates another bubble because people go out and borrow money really cheaply and buy houses. And I remember during lockdown, the interest rates were very low, and the housing market was booming, and the house prices were going up because the Reserve Bank, which is the same as the Federal Reserve, had put so much money into the system through the banking system that interest rates were really low, and people were going out and borrowing money. So they're borrowing against the equity of their existing house to buy another house. And there were people bidding at the auctions left, right, and centre, pushing the prices of houses up. So houses went up approximately 50% during COVID due to the government printing off a ton of money. And there's a whole lot of reasons why things are really expensive in Auckland, and it's just not one factor. So the government did their part and buggered things up. But then again, we're in an era that we didn't know what was going to happen, and there's a sense of panic. I remember the queues outside the supermarkets was like the Soviet Union in the 1990s or 1980s, massive queues outside the supermarkets because only so many people could go in, and you had to wear masks and all this sort of stuff. So the government did their bit, but also there's a whole lot of other factors that are contributing to an expensive city to live in. So the local councils around the country, they're out of control. They've lost their focus. So a council should only be operating for services that aren't or cannot be provided by the private sector. And in all fairness, the private sector can probably do most of those services, but there's certain services that that the council has a balance sheet to do and provide those services. So basic things like water supply, rubbish pickup, those are fundamental basic council services. In other parts of the world, the water supply has been sold off to private sectors, like in England, and the council doesn't necessarily have to be in that, but they are. But they should just do the basics, and they lose focus of their basics, and they do a whole lot of pet projects like art galleries, 200 million, art museums, 300 million. They build massive stadiums in just about every 4 or 5 suburbs. So stadiums are hugely expensive, and they're not occupied a lot throughout the year. It's a very bizarre business model. So they spending more money than they can get, and hence they have to put the rates up. And the rates have been going up by 10% a year. And the reason why this impacts on you is because your rents go up, because most landlords just pass on the expenses to the tenants to pay. So there's a council that are not doing their part. Their spending's out of control, and they've got to get back to basics. Construction costs have gone up also. And they've almost doubled overnight. I remember employing a builder pre-COVID for $45 an hour. Now the hourly rate's $90 an hour. And the cost per square metre of building a house has gone from $1,800 up to $3,500 per square metre. So that's impacted on the supply of houses and the price of houses to buy a house. So there's a whole combination of things that need to be looked at and fixed. And it comes from proper leadership in politics. You've got to get the right people to make the hard decisions. But also food prices have gone up considerably during COVID. I remember pre-COVID, I used to purchase fresh salmon at $30 per kilo. Now it's $45 per kilo. So that's a 50% increase. And you see lots of little things in the supermarket that the prices have gone up quite considerably. And you ask yourself, have the cows become more expensive to eat the grass? Why has milk gone up so much? Why has fish gone up so much? Is it more expensive to take fish out of the water? And so forth and so forth. There are certain economies like New Zealand and Australia and Canada with small populations that don't have the dynamics of many competitors, many suppliers. So we're underpopulated in those countries, and it leads to duopolies in supermarkets or construction materials and so forth. Quite frankly, the purchasing power of wages and salaries have not kept up with the pace of the cost of living costs. So people are way behind pre-COVID. So you're not alone. Everyone's in the same boat in most first world cities. And this will probably be the first generation coming through who will not have the ability to surpass their parents income earning potential, and it's just the way it is. It's some say COVID was a 1 in 100 year storm, and we just had to pump money left, right, and centre. But some countries overreacted, like New Zealand, and spent money in a terrible way that had no sort of measured outcomes. So things will rebalance. I believe they'll rebalance, but it comes with the right leadership, and you've got to get the right leadership in government. And I can't speak on behalf of the other countries, but in New Zealand, I firmly believe the current government is more financially driven and focused on outcomes and being more responsible with taxpayers' money. So it's fiddly and it's tricky, but I think it'll get better, and wages and salaries will catch up eventually. But at the moment, they're way behind, and people are struggling, and it's really tough. So full acknowledgement of how tough it is out there. So you may also look at yourself. You may want to look at getting retrained to get a higher wage or salary, but then you've got to understand what you're getting yourself in for, and it's a very long game. So if you take time out of the workforce and get retrained, it will be some time off, maybe 5-10 years plus before you start earning good coin. And also you got to look at the price of getting retrained, because some courses do not offer a return on investment. Like now beautician courses, 25,000 student loan, basically how to paint nails, put false nails on. Not that I'd recommend you doing that, but it just doesn't pay for itself. It's a very lowly paid job. You've got to be careful what you select and how you market yourself and what skills you have. But another one is second world countries are incredibly cheap to live in. And I personally see a lot of people leaving first world countries and going to second world countries where it's a hell of a lot cheaper to live. And I often frequent Thailand and Vietnam, and there's a lot of Westerners moving around those countries and living there full time because it's incredibly cheap compared to back home. A lot of Americans from LA, New York, who are living in Asia because it's incredibly cheap. And if you can earn money back in your local country with what you can earn and then fund your lifestyle in Asia, it's a win-win situation, because you don't want to really work in a local country in a local job because the wages, the salaries aren't that great. But if you can still earn money from the country you're originally from, it's a win-win situation. And I can see a lot more people in the future living in Asia, because the first world countries, Europe and Australia, New Zealand, and the United States and Canada, they've become very, very expensive to live in. And also not just Western European type countries. There's also parts of Asia that are really expensive, as you saw from the table I had on my second slide. Countries like Shanghai, Singapore, Hong Kong, very, very expensive. And one of my businesses, I get some products or some supply materials from China. And one of my supply agents is a lady who lives in Shanghai, and she's got a 30-year mortgage. And there's a semi-property collapse. It's very hard to work out what's going on in China, but there's a semi-property collapse in Shanghai. And the purchase price of the place that she purchased, an apartment, has decreased in value. So just talking argument's sake, she purchased it for, say, $800,000. It's now worth $600,000 because there's so many empty apartments around that the price of her apartment has gone down, yet her mortgage is above the $600,000 mark, and she'll be spending 30 years to pay that off for something at the end will be worth a hell of a lot less than what she initially purchased it for. So her and her husband are in a very tight situation. So there's problems all around here, guys. It is in the best interests of the government to rebalance and give people a stake in the economy, because if there's an increasingly group of marginalised people who feel disenfranchised with their stake in the economy, it can lead to political problems, and there can be all sorts of frictions that can occur. So it's in the best interests of the government to be inclusive and try and give as many opportunities as possible to people. Otherwise, you'll have a big problem down the track. But overall, I'm very confident of the future. I think the future is going to be better. Technology will play a huge part in terms of productivity. It will make things a lot easier for a lot of people, and it's our way out of the current mess. And if you increase productivity, you most likely increase your wages and your salary, and increase wealth and catch up to the cost of living. But at the moment, it's very difficult, and I understand a lot of people are stuck in that trap and they're not going anywhere fast, and the cost of living is expensive, and hopefully it will get rebalanced and the future's better. So that's it today, guys. I hope you got something out of it. It does relate to relationships because money does affect people big time. If you want to buy my book, Alpha Dating, it has all the information to navigate you through the minefields of dating and relationships. You can get it on Kindle, on Amazon, and it's a great purchase. So that's it for today, guys. Take care.